Welcome back. And this is me. I'm Jen. This is Raising Phoenix. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like moving from a Midwestern state down to Southwest Florida. Uh, we took this trek, my kids and I and the dog, Annie, from a quite northern state down to a border state of Canada down to Southwest Florida 4 years ago now. In fact, we're coming up on the anniversary, will be July 1st, and we I should say I rented a 26-foot U-Haul, and the car that we had at the time went onto a trailer that we towed behind us. Myself, my then 4-year-old daughter at the time, and my then 16-year-old son at the time, and our 54-pound Pitty boxer mix all sat in the cab. So one long bench in the cab of that 26-foot U-Haul for 3 days, the 3 days that it took us to get down here. We took our time. We only drove about 8 hours a day. And I look back on that now and I cannot believe we made it down here in one piece. It was a harrowing trip, especially through the mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Appalachian Mountain Ridge. It was terrifying with that big of a truck and along with the trailer towing behind us. It was crazy. And it's something that I don't think I would ever do again. I would definitely hire a moving company if I ever decided to move again. But yeah, I mean, long distance move. Yeah. So that was crazy. But we got down here, and we had come the May before we moved down so that I could interview for several different positions in the field that I'm in. I'm a veterinary receptionist now, but back then I was a veterinary technician. And so I already had a job lined up, and I had rented an apartment sight unseen, and we pulled into the apartment complex, and now mind you, that big of a truck, it was full. It was full from top to bottom with our belongings. So we get there, we go into the office, I sign all the paperwork, hand over the cashier's check, and she hands me the keys and she says, I'll walk you over there. So she walks us over there, and I assumed, because the apartment number started with a 1, that we would be on the first floor, but it was on the second floor, and it was a tall second floor, and those steps up to that second floor were daunting. And I remember my son and I both looked at each other because we knew we were doing it all on our own. And it was tough. I mean, he had a really heavy dresser at the time, solid oak. There were a number of really heavy pieces of furniture and boxes and things that, I mean, I thought, if we get all this furniture in here, without breaking anything or ourselves, God is really looking over us. So, but we did it. I remember at one point, One of the new neighbors happened to walk by and saw us struggling. We were just stopped in the middle of the staircase because we just were struggling so bad with this one piece of furniture, and he offered to help us. So he did, and we finally got it into the apartment, and it took us 2 days, 2 whole days to get that truck unloaded, and so we could take it back and drop it off at the U-Haul that we were scheduled to drop it off at. And I remember just being so exhausted. I didn't even think I was going to get out of bed the next day. Um, but I also had these feelings of, oh my goodness, what did I do? What have I done? Um, Also mixed with this feeling of complete, I just was so proud of myself that I had, for lack of a better term, pulled it off. I pulled it off. I did it. Everything was set. And we had a beautiful apartment. The complex that it was in was not great. But I really liked that apartment. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and a huge living room. The bedrooms were quite large, especially the master. And I just was like, how did I do this? But I mean, yes, it was a year in planning in the works. That's technically how I did it. But it was, there were so many avenues where it could have just completely gone off the rails, but it didn't. We were there, and I was excited. My daughter was a little too young to even kind of realize what was happening, and my son, not thrilled. Not thrilled. So he doesn't like the heat at all. And I think, we moved there in the dead center of summer, hurricane season. And so it was raining every day. Some tropical storms came through that year, but no hurricanes came close to us that year. So I thought, oh boy, this is hurricane season? Big deal. Big deal. No big deal. It was a little bit easier to say that, though, because we did have that second floor apartment. Um, and it was good. I mean, I just remember taking walks through the neighborhood that we lived in and just taking pictures of the grass. So the grass in Florida is not like regular grass. It's not like the grass where I had just moved from. It is really made up of ground cover, really. And ground cover that has all of these teeny tiny little flowers, and they could be white flowers, and they could be pink flowers, they could be purple, blue, yellow. But I just remember taking pictures of the grass and all these teeny tiny little flowers in there and just being in awe, like, my gosh, it's so beautiful, and taking pictures of all the neighbors' flowers because they had flowers that I literally had never seen in person before in my life. And now, full disclosure, I did grow up visiting Florida every summer, but we lived, or we had a timeshare in Kissimmee. So Kissimmee is very near Orlando. And the reason why is because it was, that's where you went to Disney, that's where you went to Universal. So that's where our timeshare was. But when you're a kid and a teenager even, you're on vacation in Florida, you're not thinking about the flowers. You're going to ride rides, you're going to go shopping, you know. So, experiencing Florida as an adult has been much different than me experiencing it as a kid. For that, I'm grateful because, as I said, as a kid, we never even visited the beaches on either coast. So I had never experienced a Florida beach before. Um, well, one time as an adult, I experienced a Florida beach, and that was, I believe, St. Pete Beach. But that's a story for another day. And I just was in awe of it. Now, 4 years later, do I still have that same sense of awe and wonder? Yes. Every once in a while, when I see a magnificent sunset on the beach, or even just where I live, um, when I see just a gorgeous tree that I've never seen before, or a plant that I've never seen before, or just never noticed. Um, when it's January and February, and I can remember still, I'm so new here that I still remember living in my coat 24/7, because where I come from, winter is 7 to 9 months long, and you just never get warm. At least I didn't. I never got warm because I believe I was born in the wrong hemisphere or wrong time zone, or not time zone, but I was born in the wrong latitude. I thrive in hot weather. Um, it just, I have autoimmune issues, and so that oftentimes leads to a lot of aches and pains in my joints, and it's hard for me to get out of bed a lot of times, in where I used to live. So like I would feel like so stiff in the winter time, and in January, February, March, December, November, I really appreciate where I live, just because it's so warm, and it is just makes me feel a lot better, um, physically, to be in this warm climate. Um, so that's like some pros. I also think that the schools are somewhat better down here than they were where we came from, as far as my kids. Um, I truly believe that if we had stayed up there, that my son would not have graduated on time, because during the COVID pandemic, uh, all well, the school system where we lived, they were out of school for 2 years. They were virtual school for 2 years, school from home, and 2 years, 2 full school years, they were school from home. And my son literally lost 2 years of schooling. And after we moved to Florida, because he just, that wasn't school from home, was like no school for him. Um, so yeah, after we moved to Florida, um, the school that he transferred to actively helped him to graduate. I mean, they did so much one-on-one with him. I was like blown away to get him to graduate on time. Like legitimately get him to graduate on time with a pretty good GPA. So that was really awesome to see. And then my daughter, you know, she spent the first 2 years, 3 years in the public schools here. But now she goes to school from home virtually. It's still part of the county public school system where we live. Um, so it's still like the same kind of curriculum, somewhat, you know, as far as like where they're supposed to be at academically and what they're supposed to be learning in each grade. Um, but it just works great for her because she is a 2E kid, and a 2E is uh, twice exceptional. 2E short for twice exceptional. And so she is gifted, highly gifted. I always forget the highly part because she's not just gifted, she's in another tier of gifted, according to um, her evaluation and yeah, all that. So she's in another rarer level of giftedness. Um, but she also is a level 1 autism. And so, you know, because she is so smart, I've known that since she was a baby, a young baby, under a year old. I've known that. Um, but the autism didn't I didn't quite pick up on that until a little while later. And then when she went to school, so she was always home as a little kid because I was blessed to have my family, you know, where we lived, to help take care of her. But so she wasn't all that, you know, around little kids all that much. But when we moved here, that's when she started, you know, preschool and after, you know, aftercare to accommodate my job. And so that's when we started seeing the lack of social skills. And, you know, at first I just thought, well, this is the first time she's had to be social, you know, so I just kind of chalked it up to that. But when it didn't get better, you know, that's when I started really paying attention to see and kind of doing research to see if there was anything else along with that could explain that. So as far as symptoms, so high sensitivity to noises, high sensitivity to uh, clothing, feel, textures, smells. She's a super picky eater. A lot of anxieties as far as, and a lot of that goes, you know, crosses both realms. So it's also from her intelligence, her intellect, as well as her um, ASD diagnosis, is that she's hyper aware of a lot more things that an average kid her age would be aware of. Um, so she has profound thoughts on life and death and what ifs. And it's hard for her to not think about that stuff. So she kind of hyper fixates on it. So what I've been trying to do specifically this past year is to try to get her into other things that require a higher concentration, sustained concentration. Like we've started Lego building and got her some sets that she really enjoys, and maybe I'll show those off one day if she lets me. I asked her if she would let me, and right now her consent is not given. So, yeah, so she's got, I'll just tell you what the theme of her Lego sets are is Animal Crossing. So, Animal Crossing is another thing that she's really into and hyper focused on. But I would rather her be hyper focused on things like that than so we don't watch the news. We don't watch the news in this house because she understands everything that they're saying. And a lot of kids her age, it would just be, you know, they don't care. It's just a bunch of boring adults talking, but she pays attention. Oh, yeah. That's my ice machine. It's not good. So, give me a second. Just give me a second. All right, I'm back. My daughter just asked me if I was making a TikTok. Nope. I'm not trendy enough for TikTok. I'm just going to be a vlogger on YouTube, I told her. But yeah, so and we got her a guitar, an acoustic guitar, and she's an artist. I call her an artist because I love everything she makes. She can make anything she wants with clay. And she makes paper art. So she makes these dragon heads that are really cool, like puppets. They're like dragon puppets. And she had made this book that's like a quiet book, she calls it. And the quiet book has pictures, like kind of like 3D pictures where she built up the paper on each page and made little pockets and things. So like, I don't know, for instance, if you had a picture of a bathroom on one page and then you had like a vanity set or whatever, she made like little containers out of the paper on top of the paper and all these little paper brushes, like makeup brushes, to put in the little containers. She's just so talented, and I can't wait to see what she does with that mighty brain of hers when she grows up. My son is about to turn 20 this month, and he has chosen to go live with his longtime girlfriend, who lives up in Pennsylvania. He will be living with her and her family, and he's very much looking forward to that. It's been a hard, long distance relationship for him, I know, and I hope that he really is happy up there in the cooler weather, and wish nothing more than to see him succeed and chase his dreams, and be able to be around his girlfriend all the time. I think that's going to be good for him. But yeah, so they, my daughter was okay with the move, my son not too happy, and the dog Annie, she just was excited that she had all new smells to explore, and the job was good. I'm in a new position now, which was the best move I ever made. I think I just love where I work now. But yeah, so the cons, well, we could go back to hurricane season. Yeah. So the first two hurricane seasons, the first one was like I barely noticed, because Florida didn't really get a whole lot of, at least where we lived, didn't get a whole lot of action. I think there was one that hit up in the Panhandle, and maybe one over on the East Coast. But where we lived, it was just storms, regular or tropical storms, low grade tropical storms, I should say. The second year was a little more intense. Each year has gotten more and more intense during hurricane season since we moved here. um, with last year being by far the worst. Um, and it was kind of we got through June last year of hurricane season, and I thought, oh man, we haven't heard anything. We haven't heard about anything heading our way. Almost to the end of July, and I think we had like maybe one tropical storm, which for those of you who have never experienced a tropical storm, it's just a lot of rain for like a couple of days, and lightning, winds maybe 30, 35, 40 miles an hour. Not a big deal, really. You might have to go clean up your yard after it's done, but that's about it. But then September rolled in, and it was like, oh, we've had a couple close calls now. And don't ask me to don't ask me to name the names of those storms, all of the storms of last season, because I don't remember. Um, I only remember the ones that I lived through. But the hurricanes that came affected us directly were Helene, where we got all the flooding because of where it hit, and where I am, it forced all of the water into the area where I live. Now, where it actually hit was completely devastated. And that, I believe, was Fort Myers area. It was completely devastated. I mean, they showed pictures of the area after the hurricane blew through, and it looked like a bomb went off. It was crazy. Houses, whole rows of houses, right along the coast where it hit, whole swaths, just nothing there. Absolutely nothing there. And that scared me because the neighborhood that I live in flooded for the first time, after talking to the neighbors, flooded for the first time in 60 years. And our road flooded, and it came halfway up our driveway, but it didn't get up to our house. So I was so thankful, so thankful for that. And we didn't lose power because the winds were all south of us. But the flooding is what affected the area that I live in. 8 days later, 8 days later, Hurricane Milton took aim at us. And it was almost a direct hit to where I live. I have never been so terrified. I am not going to cry on camera. I have never been so terrified to leave my dwelling. Of course, so in Florida, they have flood zones. And when they have to evacuate, they start with A, work their way down, okay, to however far inland they feel like they need to evacuate. So we are always, and I've been in an A zone since we moved here. So we're in an A zone. So we always have to evacuate. Honestly, truth be told, if I was by myself, like if I was just a single person with no kids, no dog, no pets, no nothing, I would not have evacuated. I would have gone down with the ship. But seriously though, I probably wouldn't have. But because I am a parent and I am responsible for other people's lives, we evacuated. And we evacuated the year before as well when it was mandatory evacuation. So mandatory evacuation like means that if they come and, or if they tell you this is a mandatory evacuation, like not a suggestion, like you need to leave, you have to go, bye. That means that if you get into trouble, if your house is filling up with water, or there's a tree that falls on your house, or there's like electrical lines all over the place outside, like live wires, nobody's coming to help you. So that's what a mandatory evacuation means. Like you can't get out, they can't get in to help you. So we did get mandatory evacuated. I think it was 3 days, like 3 whole days before the storm was scheduled to make landfall. But we waited until, because storms do what they do. They can turn, up to 12 hours before they hit. So we waited to see if it was going to turn. It did not turn. I mean, it wobbled a couple of times south and then north and then south and then finally back north. And we waited till the day before to evacuate. When I took all of our important documents with us, and I took pictures, photo albums, the computers, and other than that, we each had a little suitcase, but other than that, that was it. That was all that we left with. Like, didn't rent a trailer to pack more stuff in, nothing. It was just our car and the few important things that we might need to start our life over. Because when we left, I put my sandbags up outside the front door and said a prayer at the door for God to protect our dwelling, and that was it. I was so scared to leave. I was so scared, and I was even more scared to come back. I was petrified. I remember we drove back the day after the storm came and went, and by this time we were already hearing about the devastation happening up in Tennessee and North Carolina, and just couldn't believe how that happened. And the drive back from our evacuation zone or the drive back from where we evacuated to back to our house, it was surreal. It was surreal. The winds from Milton were so strong. There was not one business sign. I saw huge power line post snapped in half like toothpicks. So, yeah, sorry about that. So, it was just surreal. There was so many trees down, so many. Some places were flooded a little bit, but mostly it was like, again, looked like a bomb went off. And I just thought, I can't do this. I can't face, I'm so afraid to see what I'm going home to, if there is even a home to go home to. But as we got closer and closer to home, I just kind of felt like, okay, well, this is the experience that you asked for. This is the experience that you signed up for when you moved down here. And I just told myself, you got to get tougher. You just got to get tougher. So we pulled up, and Our little privacy fence for our patio blew over. But other than that, when I opened the door to our home and I saw everything was exactly the way that I had left it, I was so grateful. I just burst into tears. I couldn't believe it. I just thought for sure I was coming home to devastation. The roof was intact, the windows were intact, everything was high and dry, and I will forever be grateful. I will forever be grateful for that, because afterwards I heard so many stories of people who lost their whole everything. You know, they lived right down by the beaches. Madeira Beach basically got buried by the beach. All of the beachfront houses and businesses literally got buried by sand, or flooded like up to second story, which renders it, it's got to be demolished at that point once it goes up to the second story of the house. Yeah, so I'll forever be grateful for that. So grateful. And here we are heading into another hurricane season. I just pray every day. We're a little more prepared than we were last year. Last year, the huge thing was, what did affect us was the power was out for 6.5, 7 days. And I have an older vehicle that, believe it or not, I can't just turn on and charge my phone. So I made sure we stockpiled chargers, portable chargers, and going to get a huge ice chest because we did lose all of the food in the refrigerator and freezer. The gas shortage was insane. There were people fighting each other over gas. So I guess one of the ports, I don't know where it was at, but one or two of the ports were heavily damaged during Hurricane Milton. And so they couldn't allow the gasoline tankers, to dock. So there was no gas coming in to deliver to the gas stations. And my car is older, but it's also a car that requires super premium gas. So I can't just put any unleaded in my vehicle. So that was crazy. I mean, there were news reports about it all over the place. Like, nobody could go anywhere. Nobody had power. Nobody could go anywhere because the gas. All of the hotels were filled up because of all the people that lost their homes. It was just like, this is so crazy. But we recovered. Everything went back to normal in about 3 months. The gas eventually came. The power eventually came back on. And we recovered. So we got through it. But I honestly don't know how many more years of, if they continue to get worse and worse and worse every season like they've been getting. I mean, what's this year going to be? Is it going to be 4 direct hits instead of 2? If it just continues to get worse and worse, I don't know. We might be filming from Tennessee in 2 years. Who knows? But I know it's been just kind of a roller coaster. So, as far as that goes. But yeah, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my experiences moving from the Midwest to Florida and how it's been going so far. And anybody who's ever thought about moving from the north, the frozen north, to Florida, like it's wonderful. It's awesome. My kids and I have gotten to do, especially my little one, we've gotten to do some really great, fun things within, you know, pretty close to home. You know, I've heard of people moving down here just to be closer to Disney. Disney's, we got our fill of Disney. Disney was fun and we did it until we didn't want to do it anymore. Now we're kind of thinking of maybe next year to get Universal passes back because we did have them at one point, but um, the zoos are fantastic. The aquariums are gorgeous. The beaches, of course, are just gorgeous. Um, but there's pros and cons to wherever you live. Um, so that's been our experience, a little bit about our experience so far. And I just want to say, if you've made it through my entire video and rant, I really appreciate you. And I don't, I hope this is a video that, I know it won't get a lot of views right now, but I hope this is a video that you go back and look at 5 years from now and be like, oh my goodness, look at Jen's beginning. But that's a dream of mine. If I can find a way to make it happen, I will. But this is me. I'm Jen, and this is Raising Phoenix. And thanks for letting me share a little bit about my experiences with you. And we'll see you again. We'll see you around. Take care, friends. Bye.